Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming More Me. I am so excited. Today's guest is Sophia Demas. Sophia is the author of The Divine Language of Coincidence: How Miracles Transformed My Life Once I Started Paying Attention, which is a spiritual memoir. And she also just shared with me that she's got another book coming out soon, too. So this is exciting. But in the book that she first published, it shared her personal experiences of a prodigious number of miracles that transformed her life and the common denominator that they shared. The book explores the events in her life that initially appeared to be coincidences, but upon deeper reflection, turned out to be building blocks of the miraculous. Sophia believes that miracles are not only possible, but more common than we actually realize. She has also had a very interesting career, having worked in architecture with the visionary Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller, running her own couture fashion business, and working as a mental health therapist in private practice. She also created a really interesting sounding program, Living a Fearless Life. It's a 12-step workshop program designed to help society's most at-risk women increase their self-esteem. And it was piloted in the Philadelphia prison system and implemented with groups of ex-trafficked and ex-homeless women and women in recovery. Writing a book was never on Sophia's radar, but her experiences compelled her to share her truth about miracles with the world. And now she's here today to continue shedding light on that possibility and how paying attention to them can really transform our life. Welcome, Sophia. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'd love it if we could just start with you telling, me and the listeners a little bit about you, where you're from, what your day-to-day life is like, who you spend your time with, that kind of thing.
Well, I will tell you that writing a book was not on my radar. About 15 years ago, a medium, and I had no desire to see a medium, but you know how things go. There I was face to face with this world-renowned medium. Her name is Vicky Gay. And she told me I was going to write a book. And I just said, absolutely not. I said, that's not in the cards. First of all, I have nothing to write about, but I'm a people person, and there's no way that I'm going to sequester myself and write a book. So that's that. And I thought to myself, just because she's world renowned doesn't mean that she gets it right every time. So these things kept happening to me, and people would say, oh, these things only happen to you. And and then about 12 years ago, I was reconnecting with a childhood friend, and I told her my latest miracle, and she says, oh, these things only happen to you. And something clicked. I'm like, people experience coincidences and miracles, but it's just been how my life has gone down, and I just meditated on it. And then when I realized what the key was, it just became, writing a book was just natural. So I wrote the book, but there was just too many to cram into one book. So I plucked out all the ones that had to do with death. And there's so many of them. And then that became a second book. So that's what I'm doing in my days is getting ready now to have my second book released, and just talk to people about it.
Yeah, that is so exciting. And this is all like really landing with me because you don't know this, but I just started writing my first book. So hearing about your experience and the ease that came to you once you figured things out is exactly what I'm going for. I'm just trying to write mine through the lens of ease, enjoying the process, pleasure, and just making the most out of the experiences and the things that I plan on sharing. So I love talking to other authors right now because it gives me that hope and that fortitude that I too can be among your ranks.
And ask for help. That's,
Yes.
just ask for help. I mean, you don't have to do a big prayer session, just ask for help. And for me, I've never actually given birth. We've adopted our daughter. But that's what I think my first book was like, having your first child. You're excited, but you kind of don't know how it's going to go, like what's going to happen with this child.
Yes.
And the second book
Will I
is
get it
just,
right?
yeah, yes. And the second book is just as exciting, but you've kind of done that rodeo, so it's easier. So
Yeah. So I mean, you didn't think you'd ever write the first book. What
no.
kind of I guess what kind of inspiration comes that you want to do it again?
Well, it was, see, this is how it's been for me. It was like the plucking out the ones that had to do with death was just instinctual. I just thought, you know, I'm just going to wipe that part out, and just keep them. And then it was just like, wait a second, I want to share this too. And it
Right.
just became a book. And then even the help I got. Oh, and here is what that medium said to me. Okay, so I'm arguing with her how I'm not going to write a book. So, and she started by saying, "Oh, there's a spirit right here next to me, like pushing me, like pushing my shoulder, like it's nudging me, but it's not, the message is not for me, it's for you. And then there's a spirit by your feet, and it's just looking at you imploringly. And there's a message here. There's a message." And then she kind of looks past my face, and she says, "Well, there you are with your glasses on. You're writing. You're on a computer, and you're writing something. And oh, you really are intent in expressing that which you feel. You're writing a book. You're going to write a book, And that's how she started. And I'm like, no, no, no way. And then she very calmly listened to my argument. And then word for word, she said, "Spirit says when she's ready, there are many spirits here to help her and many hands on earth." And that's how it went down. So I had, my second book, it's 7 chapters are my experiences with communication with departed loved ones, and 3 are friends. And I really can't tell you which one is the strangest. I mean, they're just amazing. And so and it was like, even like having lunch with a friend. I mean, literally getting help from my friends here on earth. Like she said, "Well, aren't you going to write about your 2 near-death accidents?" And I said, "No, I mean, I'm here." She goes, "That's precisely why you should write about them, because they are the weirdest accidents I've ever heard, and that you're still here, and that they happened within 5 months of each other." And so I thought about it, and I went, I remember the message I got, but like, how could these 2 things happen to me? You know, Nothing like this has happened before, nothing since. It was 2016. And it just came, the knowingness. And it was like, it's not your time yet. You have not fulfilled your purpose. And so I got 2 more chapters because of friends. Um, I mean, I'm not going to go into it, but I mean, there's some my friends, I mean, their stories are just absolutely incredible, So I'm
I
really
bet it makes for
excited
an
about.
amazing book. And
Yes,
but it sounds
yes.
like the energy was a little different, like dragging your feet into the first book. It sounds like you were more called to ease into this next one, and it wasn't quite as much of like a no. Whereas I hear some
Mhm.
people say that they didn't enjoy the first book writing experience and then they decided to do it again, just kind of like buckle up because it turned out well. I don't know. It's kind of like me and my family. We always say we're never going to drive to Florida again, and then we do it, that kind of
But
thing.
you really should also consider treating yourself. Okay, I I couldn't sit down and write. I couldn't. I mean, I was just procrastinating and procrastinating. And I rented a cottage in the Poconos for a week. And
Nice.
it was like 3 feet snow. And my husband took me there on Valentine's Day. And he actually recreated this meal that it was a first dinner he cooked for me, which I
Oh,
decided this is the guy, but
oh,
anyway, and he dumps me there with provisions, and I was there without a car for a week, and that's how it got going.
oh,
And then I
wow.
had
That sounds perfect, actually.
it, it's it was exactly what was needed. I have a friend who has a house on a Greek island in Astypalea, and she gives me this beautiful, beautiful place overlooking,
Mm.
the ocean on this Greek island for 5 weeks. And I mean, if you want inspiration, that's a perfect place to do your book. So consider that. But I
Yeah,
would,
definitely.
yeah, the first book is a memoir, and it's, like any memoir, it's mostly, chronological. But I have two chapters that are, one is entitled Please, which is about prayer, and the other, or asking, and the other is Thank You, about gratitude. And those miracles are thematic. So it's interesting what the parts that intrigue people, like different people are intrigued by different parts of the book.
Yeah. I can see how. That's really exciting. And yeah, it's getting me very excited about writing too. And it's funny because we already booked for summer vacation. We rented a home and I made sure that it had a nice like office area overlooking the lake where I could spend my early mornings writing. Cause I'm like, you know what?
Yes.
I'm going to be well into the writing process at that point, and I need a good place to let out the inspiration. And I hired an accountability coach and everything else because I've started this project many times and not finished. So I know that having that extra hand to hold along the way and make sure that I'm actually getting to the places I need to at certain times is going to be really helpful too. So that's exciting. When will your
Can
next,
you
sorry,
can you tell me what your book is about? Just
it's going to be a little bit memoir as far as my own life, my own struggles and things. So I'm an EFT master practitioner. I work a lot with energy, hypnosis, things like that. Yep, tap in, you got it. And it's how I kind of overcame a lot of my own challenges with high functioning anxiety and with trauma and other things in my life, and how I now help so many other women to do the same thing, and kind of sharing some of the modalities and things that other people can use and implement right away.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a
Yeah,
fun
good
walk
luck.
down memory
Yes.
lane for me, and a great realization of even, how far I've come that I haven't even realized as I look back over the years that I seem to have forgotten about since things have gotten so good, and really take a
Um,
look back.
One thing I would um, advise or suggest, which is something my husband told me, because I was really bogged down with, oh, should I put this in? Should I not put this in? And this kind of back and forth. And he says, no, just write everything that comes to your head. And it was kind of brilliant, because then going back, I mean, I went from, I think it was like 500 pages to 300 and some, just taking, well,
Is
I guess
weeding
this
things
isn't
out.
pertaining, yes, weeding. And that, I think, sculpted the book even
Yeah, I'm
better.
sure. And it probably made you feel like you didn't leave any stone unturned and that you couldn't have
Yes.
possibly missed anything. And that probably added to your own confidence about the writing process.
Mhm.
Yeah, great tip. Thank you so much, Sophia. So I'm curious what it was like to work with Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller back in the day. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, again, um, it was it was absolutely miraculous how that even came about,
How did it?
So I was in Italy, um, studying. I got a scholarship to study Etruscanology. I was at that time I was going to be an archaeologist, and so I then went from Perugia. I went to Florence, and one of my roommates, we would be up all night, smoking Gauloise cigarettes and philosophizing, and so we were talking, and he says to me, if you could be with anyone, dead or alive, for half an hour, who would it be? And I don't know who I said, probably Thomas Jefferson. I don't know. And I said, who would it be for you? And he says, Buckminster Fuller. And I'm like, okay, I knew that he had invented the geodesic dome, but why, of all people, dead or alive, would you spend it with him? And he just gets up and he brings me this little thin book called No Secondhand God. It was like 40 pages. And I read this book and I'm like, who is this man? Who is this man? So he became my hero. And I come back to the States and I read everything about him. And a friend of mine who was president of the student union comes over and goes, knowing that I was like obsessed with Buckminster Fuller. He really was a modern day Leonardo da Vinci, I'm just incredible mind.
Just a great inventor, designer, futurist, all those things.
Futurist,
really
yes.
Cool.
So he comes over and he says, well, guess who's coming to lecture Tuesday? And I said, Buckminster Fuller. And he goes, would you like to come with me and pick him and his wife up at the airport? And that's how we met. And we just clicked. And he asked me to be with his wife that day. Well, he lectured and did 2 lectures. And he would lecture on and on forever.
And when was this? Around what year?
This was 1970, I would say. 1970. Oh, no. 1973, I think.
Okay.
Something like that,
cool.
And so we started up a correspondence. And I came to visit in Philadelphia and he asked me to work with them. How does that work to end up working with your idol? And so I talk about this actually in the book. I have a Bucky chapter.
Oh, and that was, those were the later years of his life. Didn't he pass away in like the 80s?
Yes, he did. I think it was 82 or 83. And this man was just absolutely not of this earth, I don't know how to explain it, but he and his wife had the most romantic death I have ever been privy to, and that is in my second book. One of the chapters is about how they died, because the way they died, neither one experienced the death of the other.
I got to read this because I don't know anything about that. That's really intriguing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And also, as far as miracles, maybe I should do a little definition of my.
Sure, I'd love that.
My thing of a miracle, because I have been a student of A Course in Miracles, and how I literally tripped on that is also in the book. And so according to the Course in Miracles, one miracle is not bigger than another miracle. One of the definitions of a miracle in the book is a change of perception for a higher frequency. So for example, I was all for capital punishment, 40 years ago, kill them, get them off the streets, kill them. And now, even if
Hey, let's take a quick break from the episode and chat about the Becoming More Me signature program. Because the truth is, we can digest information and learning all day long, whether it's podcasts, books, audiobooks, courses. But ask yourself if it's really changing the way that you're showing up in your life. I know that for me, I felt like a collector of information for a very long time, and it wasn't until I started implementing nourishment of my nervous system and rewiring of my subconscious that I felt like I could really leverage that information to show up differently in my life. And that's why I created the Becoming More Me signature program, which allows me to work with clients in both one-on-one and group settings so that they can start showing up differently in their lives and actually creating and manifesting their desired outcomes like never before. If this is something that sounds even remotely interesting to you, I invite you to hop on a call where we're not even going to talk about you joining the program. We're just going to talk about you, and we're going to talk about what it is that you want out of your life and business right now. And I'm going to offer you some free, no strings insights on how you can start making those changes. And we'll take things from there. But it's always good to start with getting to know each other. So if that sounds interesting to you, and if the idea of perhaps looking further into a program like this might appeal to you now or in the near future, then hop over to gamechangingconversation.com, book a time, and we'll get to know each other. And this will help you to understand if something like this is going to be right for you moving forward. And the worst case scenario is you're going to walk away from this call with several things you can start doing right away to start getting closer to the changes you desire the most. Now back to the episode.
Someone harmed a loved one, I could not bring myself to do that. It's a whole other mindset. So
do you
I
view
had
that shift as a miracle?
Yes. Yeah. Because if that happened to me, God forbid, I could save somebody's life. I just can't say, okay, at this time we are going to put this person to death. I just can't do that. So,
and it seems like from what I've read about the work that you do help people to turn around and save their lives. And that's something that I can see being very valuable to you. I'd love to hear more about what you created for the prison system.
That was a process. I didn't start out like this. I mean, I was like a brat, and I, loved, beautiful clothes, beautiful things, and I still do. But my purpose in life shifted. Okay, so started out in architecture. I just wanted to design a beautiful building. And then after working with Buckminster Fuller, it was solving the issues of society through design. And then I ended up designing these laboratories, like biological laboratories. And it was so far from beauty. It was challenging, but it was so far from beauty that I got into designing clothes. So I started my dress designing business and just wanted to design beautiful dresses for beautiful women. Well, that got boring. I mean, it was like, you can put a burlap bag in a beautiful woman and she's still beautiful. So it became the problem figure. So I had two great assistants, and we produced 30 gorgeous everything was designed for evening wear. And we designed 30 beautiful gowns, maternity gowns, that we rented out. And that's how I kind of got on the map. And so people from all, the AP got it, and I was getting calls from like Austin, Texas. And I'm like, no, these are for rent. And then, so then it was kind of like, wait a second, there's something more to, getting to women. I had clients that were drop dead gorgeous, and they had no self-esteem. And then I had, large, like size 32 women that just were like ready to party. And I thought, okay, there's something to this. And so that's how self-esteem became an important issue. And so I went back to school and got my master's in counseling psychology when I was 50. And so I designed this program, and the administration at the prison, I mean, they were like, these women have changed their behavior, but the commissioner, the police commissioner, put me in front of the board, 32 men and 2 women, and these guys were just rolling their eyes around like, oh God, and so they didn't give me the funding because it wasn't tested, it wasn't studied and researched. Like, okay, like, I mean, can't we all like vote that love heals? Like, do we have to research love? Although now they're doing
There's
it.
lots of research now, but
Yeah, and happiness. Yeah, like, oh gee, is happiness good? So
you think
so
there would be more out there, like already, even then, about the one thing that remains after everything else is gone, you
yes,
know?
yes, because that really figures in my second book about that we are
We are loved.
helped
Yeah.
and loved beyond the grave, so anyway, so they didn't give me the money, and I got a grant, and then I did it for ex-trafficked women and ex-homeless women and women in recovery, and it worked. It really, really worked, so
That's
yeah, and
awesome.
that's how it just became part of my life, that when you help someone, you get the gift. You're the one that gets the gift. And I think that
There's a beautiful
so
ripple effect to it. I always say that. My
yes,
clients are like my best teachers, and I learn so
yes,
much from them. And, hopefully I'm imparting great things to them as well. But yeah, it's a beautiful mutual relationship when you get to
yes.
help people like that.
And also, my miracles were my guides, my guiding, like opening up to, new things. And what I believe, okay, and this is just my belief, like, there's divine intelligence, that's a power that's bigger than us, God, universal consciousness, whatever you want to call this thing, that knows better about what's best for us, better than we do. So I I mean, this intelligence communicates with us in very many different ways. But my way, the way I connected, is through the coincidences that were put in my path. So I feel that for me, I was communicated through coincidence and my intuition.
Yeah.
So when I found the key, which was taking action, okay, you you see the coincidence and you can just go, oh my God, that's such a coincidence, and let it go, and then it just remains a coincidence. But if you take action on it, you can get a miracle.
Yeah.
And so I have like what people would call a real miracle, and I would say one of them was my husband. Okay, I was on the brink of divorce. I married this wonderful, mild-mannered man that ends up that he was a major rager. And he would just, like, I could just like cross my eyes accidentally, and he would take it as a personal attack and start raging. And, but, I had threatened to leave, and he would do whatever he could to better himself, you know, just really put the effort in. That would make me stay. And finally, I said, bye bye. I'm just not going to be abused. It's not in my nature. Bye bye. And that lasted 6 months that I moved out, and 3 incredible, incredible coincidences happened within 2 months of each other. I was never going to see this man again. And I mean, 3 incredible coincidences. And I took action on them, and we got back together. And that was in 2009. And he has not had one episode. I'm married to my dream companion. How
Oh,
does that work? See, so the universe wants us to be happy, wants us to find our true purpose. But you can't just sit with your sitting on your hands. It's like,
Right.
but once we come halfway, we become co-creators with
Yeah.
this divine intelligence, and we get exactly what we need at the right time. And
Totally.
I want people to know that, it took this action, and then there's the little coincidences that turn into miracles, like two things that happened before our wedding, that it was just like unbelievable. I'll tell you one. Okay. And that was, okay, one, because of this coincidence, it was a wrong number. But I knew the person that, I mean, and this, because of this wrong number, this person that was just a social acquaintance owned the Barclay Hotel here in Center City, Philadelphia. And he gave us the ballroom because all the venues were gone because we only had 3 months to prepare for our wedding. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And then the second one was, this woman calls me up and says, "Is this Sophia Demas?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, I found your driver's license in Rittenhouse Square." And I checked, and my driver's license was not in my pocket. And so I said, "Oh, okay." She goes, "What should I do with it?" She only lived like a couple blocks away, which makes sense. And I said, "Well, just put it through my mail slot. Thank you so much." So she does. And she had a nice little note about Oregon. I'm from Oregon, and that my driver's license was an Oregon driver's license. And that was that. And how nice is this? Okay, thank you. So a couple months later, she calls me again. And she says, "I know this is going to sound really strange, but I just found your ATM card." I went, "What?" Now, and I don't lose cards, okay? I don't. And lo and behold, I had gone to a different ATM, the one that I usually go to, it spits it right back out. Well,
Okay.
this one says, "Would you like another transaction?"
Right.
So, okay, so anyone else that came along could just wipe out my whole, bank account. So it was her. And she said, "I was just shocked." I'm like, "You're shocked. But now," she said, "Would you like me to put it through the mail slot?" I said, "No, no, no, we have to meet." Okay, that's the action taken. Okay,
Right.
we have to meet. So she came to my studio, and I had this handmade, soap from Oregon to give her to thank her. And that was kind of that. And then just before the wedding, she's jogging, and we stopped and we started talking. We had coffee, and she's a concert violinist.
Hmm.
And so I said, "Do you know Concierto de Aranjuez?" Which is my favorite concierto. She goes, "Oh, yes." And I said, "Well, because we were going to have an organist because it was too, sort of at the finish line to get somebody for the church." She said, "I would love to play that for you at your wedding." And then it's really for a classical guitar. She got this wonderful classical guitarist. She said, "Mine is my wedding present to you, but you can give him, like $150 or something." And I walked down the aisle to my favorite concierto.
Ooh,
Yep.
I'm tearing up. That's an awesome story. That's really cool.
So somebody can say, "Well, I ask people which one they think is stranger, and it's kind of like sort of half and half. But somebody can say, "Well, these are just, weird coincidences." But if I hadn't taken action on both of them, that's all I would have to tell you right now. I wouldn't even be
Right.
telling you anything.
And that's where intuition and everything else comes into play, which is really cool.
And that sharpens as you go.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
when you have something like this that is a gift, because of being at the right place in the right time, I mean, I, everything. I mean, and I also in the book I write about how my daughter came to me. Um, we ended up adopting her when she was 19, a homeless girl, and now she is just married to her Greek husband and lives in Greece. Just got her third master's, and I mean, it was I just thank God, and that's again, just I thank God all day long, just saying please and thank you all day long, and it works.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, I could talk to you all day, Sophia. Um, thank you so much for sharing all these beautiful stories and experiences that you've had, and even all of your great tips for me and anybody else who's writing a book right now. I really appreciate all of it. Where
Oh,
is
good
the
luck.
best? Thank you. Where is the best place for our listeners to find out more about you?
Well, I have a web page, sophiademas.com, and that's SOPHIADEMAS. And I do have a page, is my influencers page, and that's 8 people that I've come in personal contact with that I consider mentors. And there's me and Bucky
Mhm.
on that influencers page, and there's also for people who are intrigued by mysticism.
Mhm.
You have to read this story of Abbess Ameliani. I mean, it's a firsthand account of bilocation. It's just an amazing, amazing story. So, and that's where you can, and my book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and
Wonderful. And when will the next book be coming out?
September 5th. And I'm very excited.
September 5th, 2023. We'll be
Yeah.
waiting for that anxiously and excitedly. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you all for
Thank you.
tuning in and listening. And have a great day. Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.